Some notes, I did some cramming. I read Stefanie's entire book in 15 minutes. It's a great read.
It is a good read.
It's a good read.
It takes more than 15 minutes.
I was scamming, not scamming. Same thing, right? And then we'll have some time for Q&A. I just have a few things to get us started. Things I didn't hear because I wasn't in the room when they happened this time, or because I wanted to ask on behalf of other people. So, Stefanie, you and I spoke about your Instagram following, 13,000 Instagram followers, which is great. Tell us about the process, what you post, how much you post, what you're posting about, as far as that.
Well, when I spoke yesterday at my panel, one of the things that I meant to do but I didn't get around to do was thanking Rachel and the organizers of JemCon for inviting me, and also a special shout out to Brian Shepard, who was kind of the instigator of this journey that I've been on for the last 5 years. Because prior to that, my toy design career, although I'm still designing, I'm freelancing, I still work. That stuff was in file cabinets, packed away in boxes and garages, and I didn't talk about it much. I didn't tell people what in the toy industry you have to be secretive. It's very confidential, and we don't talk about the things that we're working on, and there's kind of a time frame there. And so I really never talked about it. Occasionally I might post something on Facebook about a little drawing I did or something like that, but it just wasn't where I was at that moment. And then when I was invited to come to JemCon 5 years ago, it started this journey, and part of it was my social media. I had a personal Instagram like everybody has, and I decided to start one that was specifically for toy design. So it's called Steph Designs Toys. If you're not following me, please do. STEF, by the way, not PH. Anyway, so I started this Instagram, and my purpose was never to be, oh, look what I did. I did all this stuff, isn't it wonderful? It never was to be that. My Instagram always was meant to be storytelling, interesting things about the toy industry, maybe interesting things about a particular product or drawing or what happened, kind of the process, to kind of give people an understanding of what the toy industry might be like. So I talk about things like toy history, I talk about things like cost reduction, why things look different on the shelf than how they were meant to be when they were designed. I try to vary my toy. I post 6 days a week, generally just 6 times. Occasionally I might, like for JemCon, I might post more than once a day, but usually it's once a day. And I try to vary it. I'll post something about a toy that's really popular. Whenever I post about Gem or Popples or some of the other toys I did that have a big following, I get lots and lots of comments. Then I'll post about something like, I designed some obscure bull riding toy or something like that, and I, don't get a lot of engagement. But I try to make my Instagram as interesting as possible by just posting lots of different things. So if you guys follow me, or if you plan to follow me, shout out, leave a comment. I love that. And it's kind of heartening to me, because sometimes I write really long posts, because Instagram doesn't allow endless words, right? So you get to the end and it says your post is too long, and that happens to me all the time. And so then I have to go back and edit it or whatever. So I could probably write half of a book about each of the posts, because it's just, there's just so many fun things.
Blog.
What's that?
You need to start a blog.
Oh, I blogged. I wrote a book. I did all that stuff. So it's really been interesting. I just want to, before I kind of go into something else, I'm sure John Henry has other questions, but I really loved the presentation that you just did about Roseanne Radosevich, and I just wanted to shout out. I worked for Roseanne for 4 years, and she was a taskmaster. It was interesting how she said in there, she taught her designers, she had to teach her designers that came in. And I remember many occasions when I would be drawing something up, and she'd come in and she'd say, well, where's the parting line going to be on that? How do you expect to mold that? She was always challenging me. I never ever in my whole career ever had any boss that ever challenged me like Roseanne, and she really she was the, she had the vision and the brains behind Gem, and she really, she gives herself credit, but she really doesn't give herself enough credit. And it was really fun working for her. So I just kind of wanted to add that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for pulling that together, Tibi, as well. So Gisela, I want to talk about desperation. We had a conversation in the toy room about the third year line stuff, kind of these things that, and including the gems we saw on the screen, the American Beauty and Rock and Romance, so these little matching medley kits.
These little, Henry was showing me these little swatches of fabric and these little pieces.
Using old fabric, she said they're literally scraps of fabric that they're putting on to make it.
That's what I said.
Yeah. So you talked about hindsight in your earlier panel. So your hindsight on seeing American Beauty Gem, seeing Rock and Romance Gem, the pink hair's gone, she's blonde.
I think it's a little what I said before too. I think corporately, at least in the marketing department, there was lots of, how do we save this? It's not working. The boxes are laying down on the shelf. What if we made it cheaper? What if we cost reduce, like Stefanie said, sometimes we can get a few. I've since then designed toys and Target's like, no, I need that to be $19.99 at a 64% markup, and therefore it's going to have 6 songs instead of 12. But I think that when I look at this, I think it was just, how do we, I think I said desperation to John Henry. I said throwing spaghetti on the wall earlier. Anything. I mean, it's also when it's designed by committee, when lots of people are trying to solve the same problem without necessarily a strategic way. They're like, okay, let's make her pink. Let's make her more like Barbie. Maybe she'll sell. Let's make this is yuck to me. This is them just taking, what have we got? What is the factory in China got laying around that we can make fabric outfits out of super fast? Maybe this was Toys R Us saying we need the A price to be, this must have been really cheap. I mean, do you remember these?
I do.
Do you remember how they came about?
Yeah, tell us more about it, Stefanie, if you know.
No, I really don't have, I mean, I remember them, but I don't remember if I was one of the people who was cutting out swatches of fabrics and laying them down and trying to figure out, but, trying to save Gem was I don't know what you'd call it. It was an exercise in futility, because I think we all kind of saw the handwriting on the wall, but we loved Gem. And we really loved the concept of Gem, and we didn't really want to make her more like Barbie. We wanted her to stand out.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
I mean, I think certainly at the level I was in, until I was designing my own toy line, these decisions happened, I don't know about Stefanie, but they were certainly happening way above me. And the beauty of the experience I gained at Hasbro was that as I was in fact, though I had no voice, I was in the room. I was listening to, at the lunchroom, Stephen and Alan arguing about, like, what are we going to do? And Griffin Bacall saying, what are we going to do? This is one of the things they tried to do, I'm sure of it. Just like turning her more pink.
her clothes, not her hair, right?
Her clothes, not her hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool, okay.
Barbie-fy her.
Yeah, and I'm sure people will have more questions about that. Sam, welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah, flip it on.
Sorry, I was a wee bit late. I was early, but then I was cold, so we went and stood outside for a little while. But then it all started, so it's lovely to see everybody this morning.
So I wanted to ask you about a lot of the people involved with JemCon, people we've seen guest-wise, and people who are involved in the concepts and the execution of Gem are queer and or female identified people. And I wanted to ask you, Sam, about being a woman in the industry, in the entertainment industry, being an artist. As we all age, things happen. What was it like being 16 and working with Michael Sheehan as your love interest, who was much more senior in age to you, in voiceover acting, but just kind of the general trajectory and the challenges and the struggles of being a woman who wants to work in the world and who has a voice,
Right, that's an interesting question. Well, I know it was acting and it was playing, you know, so I understood. And everybody in the cast was so much older than me. I haven't met you yet in person. Nice to meet you. Yeah, this is so lovely. Oh gosh, this is so fun for the fans that like want to know all the intricacies of how everything came about.
Were you in the same room, or were you voiceover? Were you recording your voice by yourself?
All in the same room. It was like radio theater, as somebody mentioned today. It was incredible. We fed off of each other. There was so much energy and light and fun in the room, and you literally got to watch the other voice actors work, which you normally don't get the pleasure of doing that. Normally, like most voiceovers, you know, you audition in a small little booth with the director or whoever, and it's just you and the copy and somebody else, and then when you actually do the work, same thing. So you're having to come up with everything yourself. Like you have to anticipate how the other person is reading their lines, because usually the person that's reading with you is not reading like an actor, you know, or you're not even getting that. You have to just kind of take beats and then they edit it, you know, so you're coming up with everything yourself. And but it's fun. At the same time, it's creative and it's playing. And, you know, as far as being in the industry, I was in it since I was like 7, you know, a child. I think I was just a very naive 18-year-old, even though I traveled the world and I'd been in show business. I still I was very innocent looking back on myself. So I didn't really have any expectations of being a female in the business. And to be in a cast that was mostly female, and we were the main characters, you know, that was my introduction into like being a working voice talent. Like it was just normal for me. It wasn't until later in my life, you know, being in the music business and being in a bunch of bands and a bunch of different projects, that I came up against, you know, the thing that would happen to me a lot, and I'm sure a lot of females, I'm sure Britta can relate to this, is that, you know, you get approached by producers that are always men. You know, I've never worked with a female producer in the music realm. And you think you're there for your talent, and then later, you know, I'm sure that's a part of it, that's what hooks them, but there was always an agenda, and then if you didn't play the game, which I didn't, then you were slowly shelved.
Yeah.
You know, like slowly they were too busy to work on your demo, or their new girlfriend suddenly was the singer of the project that you had been coveting, you know? Like that has been something that happened so many times. A lot of disappointment in that way. It's like, how do you navigate that? You just do the best you can, and then you should just move on to the next project and I hope that they're not going to be a complete idiot. You know, again, yeah.
It reminds me of something you said in Cleveland, which I always keep with me, just like as far as how your trajectory of your career, Sam, is just follow the love, right? Follow the love,
Yeah.
where the people are giving you the love and the kind of treatment that you deserve and respect.
Yeah,
You
that
follow
was
that, right?
that was a big epiphany for me. I think I was, well, y'all know how old I am, and I got to the point. I literally have been lying about my age since I was like 8. Because when you're 8, apparently it was cuter to be 7, and when I was like 12, I was looking like I was taking photographs like I was 18, and we thought we maybe could get around the work permits and the stuff and things of that. And so there was always like this deception, of age. And I think it was around the time of American Idol, and I was in my 30s, and the cutoff age was 28. And people were like, you should go on American Idol. And I was like, I'm too old. And it was like, I was 30-something, you know? It was so insane. And I just kind of took a step back, and I felt so much love and appreciation from the Gem fans over the years. It's no joke. And I was, you know, you always kind of want that. You want to be appreciated for your work. And I even did this project once. This is so insane. Not to take up all the time, but it was supposed to be I was replacing a singer that apparently had gone off the rails. They had already done an album. It was a huge management company in New York, and they loved me, and they wanted me to replace her. And then the producer was like, you are like 35, right? You can't be any older than 35. And I think I was like 42 at the time. And I was like, I'm 35. I just came out of my mouth. And then so I remember being with my mom, and we were having to like take a decade off my life. And so it was like, what were your favorite bands? NSYNC. I was like having to redo all of in my brain. And I thought, this is insane. This is insane. I'm going, and I literally said to myself, I'm going where the love is. I don't care about the gatekeepers anymore. I can't care. It's going to literally destroy my little soul and my creative spirit. So I'm done. And I walked toward you guys. And oh my God, was I ever embraced. It makes me feel emotional because you don't even know. The journey's been very up and down, and it's been really crazy. And it's all I've ever wanted to do is just sing and do voiceover and be a part of this beautiful world.
It shouldn't even matter with voiceover.
You would think, right? You would think. So this was the best decision I ever made for myself.
Yeah, good advice for everyone. And on that topic, Gisela, I want to ask you about love. Where do you get love in your life? Where's the love? Where do you feel the love? What do you do for love? I know that you have a lot of charitable things. I know that your beautiful daughter, who's looked younger than she is, which it shouldn't matter. What age she is.
She can lie.
Is that your girl? Oh,
my girl right there.
That's the first thing I said to her. I was like, you're so beautiful.
So where's your love, Gisela?
Well, I've never heard Sydney I've never heard her publicly be asked the work with your mom question, so I almost solved it here. So I get a lot of love there. I have a very large family. When I look Hispanic, I'm Peruvian. Bilingual, came here in high school, didn't speak English. So I'm loved. I mean, Sydney, my grandmother had 13 siblings. It's an enormous clan worldwide. Thank God for WhatsApp. So I get love from my family. I'm gonna have to just talk
You
about.
had to, I'm sorry.
I left toys and dumped bee toys on Batat when catastrophe befell our life, and I lost my 19-year-old in that stupid accident. So I certainly couldn't make toys for other people's children while my two were grieving, while I was broken. So I get a lot of love from his friends and his family, and from the foundation we started where we bring solar lights, because his name was Luke, and who knew that his name was, I didn't even know that I was naming him after something that sort of means light at the time. So we bring solar lights to people that live without electricity, okay? And just as a total aside, until Rachel called me, I hadn't made the connection because we picked our kids' names out of an atlas. Her little brother, my youngest's name is Rio. And I was like, I'm gonna have to I don't think he knows that there's a Rio doll. I might just have to pick one. So that's where I get love. Okay, I get love by giving.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about anything like that, but yeah, that's a safe space, right? You feel it. Stefanie, Bruce has been here with you. Where's your love? I know he's probably sitting in the other room manning the table, right?
He is. I'm just blessed to have a wonderful family and support system. My cute husband, I think you all met him now. He was cute. We just celebrated our 45th anniversary. the arts, and he has just been such a support, always, always. I have an older son whose birthday is today. He's 44 years old today, and he is, three of my four kids are extremely creative and artistic, and then my daughter is extremely competent and less practical, so she got the practical genes and the other kids got the artistic genes. But my son, Ian, I always encouraged my kids in the arts because I was involved in art, and I always encouraged, he was a wonderful artist as a child and a young man growing up. And then, unfortunately, he had a marriage, an early marriage that, well, wasn't early like young, but his first marriage. He married a woman who was very, very unsupportive of his creative. He was a musician and an artist, and I think she wanted him to be a grown-up, and so she squelched his artistic soul. And I realized, it took me until then to really realize how important it is to have supportive people around you for whatever your creative journey is, whether it's, your love of something, your passions and enthusiasms, your artistic talent, to have someone that you love, whether it's your parents or your partner, your spouse, support that. And of course that marriage did not last, and now he's married to a wonderful, supportive woman, and he started doing art again at 44, and I'm so proud of him because his art is amazing. So, I have a wonderful, my parents always supported me in everything that I did. And I grew up in a time when a lot of young people, especially women, were encouraged to be secretaries, encouraged to do nothing against secretaries, but that wasn't my path. I always knew from the time I was little I wanted to be an artist, and I was so grateful that my parents, including my very old-fashioned dad, completely supported me in that, because it just made my journey so much more smooth. And I just, maybe I'm the kind of person that finds positive because I look for positive, but I have not had a lot of huge roadblocks in my life. Doesn't mean that I haven't had sorrows and tragedies and, bad things happen, but I consider myself blessed, and I'm a person of faith, and so I do believe in God and believe that there's a love there and a support system there that even in our darkest times that we can turn to. So, did I answer your question?
You did. Very beautifully, thank you. Similar to what Gisela was saying earlier about design, her daughter going to design. I don't know if you were here for that story, but so the supportive designer mom helps daughter becomes a successful designer. So, Gisela, this is a silly question now
okay,
for
my
you.
son Rio is totally not artistic.
Oh, he's practical?
He's Rio. So.
He's a computer
Okay.
mathematician.
That's like the character somewhat.
Calculus.
Yeah. What did you look like in the 80s? Like when you were at Hasbro, you're 24.
Just like this.
Probably, I can see. What was your hair
I
like,
permed
really?
my hair.
Permed your hair.
I'll tell you a funny perm story. I permed my hair at home with a box with my sister, and it came out, it was just before my work. No, I worked at Hasbro, oh my God. I permed my hair, and it came out horrific. And there's no Google, and there's no nothing, and we lived in Westerly, Rhode Island, and we looked in the yellow pages for the closest place that had black hair products. And it was in Norwich, Connecticut, and that very day drove to buy a hair relaxer, which I then put in my hair hours after the perm, and it started falling out in clumps. But one of my coolest looks was my Annie Lennox look. One long earring, one short earring.
I could totally see that on you. It's great. Thank you. Sam, there was a wedding here yesterday in the hotel. You saw the people getting married.
Yeah.
You have a wedding dress story, right? Could you tell that
Oh
this
my
year?
gosh. Yes. So it was my parents, my mom and my stepdad's anniversary. We live in Nashville. And their friends had arranged for us to go to the cigar lounge, and it was on the top of a fancy hotel and overlooked the city, and it was beautiful. So we're up there, my beautiful mom smoking a cigar in her beautiful, it was awesome. Suddenly, I don't know who said what to who, but this bride comes running in there, and she's like almost crying. She's like, "Oh my God, you're Jem? You're Jem?" And I'm like, "What's happening? Like, you're a bride. What's going on?" You know, I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, somebody must have told her that I was Jem, and she asked me to sign her wedding dress. And I was like, "The dress?" And I was like, "Girl, no, that's your dress. You'll have that forever. You need to wear that." And so she talked me into it. I was like, "Okay." So I signed the underneath of her hem. I autographed it. And she cried a little more. And then she ran off to her little reception down the hall.
Very
I was
happy,
like,
happily
I can't
ever
believe I
after.
signed it. It was pretty epic.
That's awesome. I have so many more things I want to talk to you all about, but I know that we're low on time, and I want to give the audience a chance. But if you guys don't have anything, and happy for me to keep going, I will. But I'd love to hear from anyone in the audience. If you have a question, I'll repeat it for the Zoom folks. Anyone? Okay, in the back, TJ.
I actually have a question about the toy line. And this may relate to the Barbie-ifying with Jem, but does anybody have any knowledge about why they changed the face sculpt to the smiling face from the original?
So for the Zoom folks, he's asking any insight into why they changed Jem from the kind of, serious model face to the smiling face. Any insight, or just retrospect, hindsight guesses even, or
I think that it was done to make Jem more beautiful. I mean, I think the original face sculpt, after a while, the original Jem one, I think some of the other characters' faces didn't change, but I think there was a little bit of dissatisfaction in that sculpt. And I think that Roseanne wanted her to be more open, more approachable, more glamorous. I mean, I remember seeing that glitter and gold Jem face when Roseanne first painted the paint master on that, and it was like I gasped at the difference between the original sculpt and that. I just thought it was so awesome. So that's just my opinion. Roseanne might have a different opinion why, but I think it was just to make her much more beautiful.
which she was, yeah. Great. Any thoughts, Gisela, on that? No, okay. Yeah. Below, above your pay grade. Any other questions from the audience?
I would imagine that you're talking about the one that looked like Chrissy Brinkley.
Yeah.
And she was the cover model in every magazine. I would
Yeah.
imagine that there were meetings of.
Let's make her look
Yeah.
like her, yeah. Raven, you have a question?
Yes.
Your name is Raven?
Yes.
Could be a Jem character.
Actually, it is.
Yes.
Yes. Raven is the character that I created for my Jem fanfiction. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But my question is, even if we consider how groundbreaking Jem was as a premise, is there anything particular that you found odd or extremely striking at some way along the journey, even as we're talking about something that was groundbreaking in and of itself?
And that question,
It's
for all three. Anything about the Jem experience that is groundbreaking to you personally, that you think is super groundbreaking?
I remember being so blown away that they had incorporated the dawn of MTV in that nugget of time, that time capsule, which is Jem, because it spoke to me, even though I was older than the kids that were watching it. I was like, oh my gosh. Like the first time I saw the music video for Jem, and it had Jem and the Holograms, who is he kissing? Like a real MTV video. I'm getting chills. Like I really just sat there going, oh my gosh, I get it. Because it was compartmentalized what we were all doing, all of us that worked on the show, but to see it all come together like that with the music videos, that really struck me. I remember thinking, this is cool.
Yeah.
I came to Hasbro in early 1986 from Mattel, and I'm a California girl. And coming out to Rhode Island from California was a huge cultural shock. there was a lot of big hair. There, you know, the 80s, the mid 80s were just kind of over the top. I didn't see that so much in California, and so when I came out to and started working on Gem, it was so different from anything that I'd ever seen before. And it wasn't just the spiky hair and the different color hair. Honestly, a lot of it was that face makeup, you know, and it was very edgy and very Annie Lennox, and you know, just I was a young mom and I wasn't really watching a lot of MTV. A lot of my colleagues were single young women in their early 20s, and they probably watched MTV and all the music videos all the time, and it kind of wasn't my world. And so for me, it was just this huge earthquake, a cultural earthquake in how dolls were going to be done. And I loved it. I mean, it was kind of shocking, but it was really exciting to see, you know, dolls with black and white hair and dolls with big streaks. I mean, that was just so cutting edge and so modern. And it kind of made me youthful again and more sophisticated again all at once. So for me, it was kind of personal, I guess you might say.
I think it speaks to the brilliance of Griffin McCall and the marketing team to actually have the chutzpah to ride the wave of MTV at that moment in time. They're like, maybe today they would be riding artificial intelligence on it. Like, it was
Synergy.
they were ahead of their time in many ways. Synergy, holograms.
When you're talking about Griffin McCall, they also, Sunbow was their division, and that was just not done before. You know, to have a company's ad agency start a production company to create cartoons for their line of toys. You know, we know that Mattel used Filmation to do their products, He-Man and things like that, but Filmation was an independent film company, and Sunbow was attached to Griffin McCall. So I think they were so far-sighted in how they worked all of these elements together to come up with this amazing doll and then cartoon line that was just really groundbreaking. And Hasbro was not the biggest company back then. They had just they had just acquired Play School and Milton Bradley, and they were really growing, but they were still in their infancy in the doll world. So I think what they did in, a matter of 2 years probably was just really unprecedented.
Wow. I also wanted to mention real quick, I remember going in for the audition and they had Xerox copies of the characters all over the walls, and I was too young to get into the clubs on the Sunset Strip because I was 18 and you have to be 21, but my friends and I would literally drive down Sunset and watch all the 21-year-olds that looked like the pictures, literally like the boys with the makeup and the colored hair and the eyeliner and just all of that was on the wall when I walked in. It was like, oh my gosh, I just saw that on Sunset, which ones am I going to be reading for? So it was such that moment in time that they literally captured.
It's a capsule, it's a total time capsule.
Really
and most cartoons are kind of free from time, but Gem is like, this is the 80s in a nugget, right? In a nutshell.
Totally. Yes.
That's funny that you mentioned that, Sam, because from 1978 until I went to Hasbro, we lived in Hollywood. But I was not walking down Sunset. I was old enough to go to the bars, but I was being a young mom. So so I guess it was kind of West Coast. I was just not aware of it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like when Guns N' Roses was blowing up, and Poison and Rat and all the hair bands and just all of it. I can't believe I was actually there for it, even though I still couldn't get in the clubs.
I always thought Rio looked like Rick Springfield.
Yeah, definitely. We had the guy who modeled for the Rio doll box here yesterday, and he looks like Rick Springfield, kind of, I think. Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of first-timers here, like first-time at JemCon people in the room and over the weekend. So, Gisela, it's your first time at JemCon. What's your impression? Rachel was very tenacious to get you here. So, what are you thinking? What are you feeling about your first JemCon?
I think it's beautiful.
The right answer. Final answer?
Final answers. It's a safe space, beautiful, loving, funny.
Colorful, fun, intelligent, right? Awesome. Sam, it's not your first JemCon, obviously. And you could tell me your favorite JemCon memory, or just talk about some of the relationships you developed with people like Patricia, who you worked with and reconnected with, or about you and Britta, so singing voice of Gem, speaking voice of Gem, or just anything generally about JemCon that you want to say, because you've been with us for a long time.
Yeah, so one of the huge gifts that I'll never forget was 2008, when we had so many of the cast, and Wally Burr, the director. I was blown away because I hadn't seen these people, since the show, and the fact that they all descended, and we never got a cast picture when we were doing Gem, but that was the closest we ever got to it, was a JemCon. So I'm eternally grateful to JemCon for making that happen. How would that have ever happened?
Yeah.
And then getting to meet Britta and all the music people, and Bryant and Ellen and all of the big New York machine that we loved and heard, but had never met anybody. So you guys facilitated us all getting to meet and swap stories, and I mean, how cool. It's just the depth of this brand and the connections that we all have to the show and to each other just keeps getting sweeter and deeper, and
Yes.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Having a reason, that's making you guys get together, whether you like it or not, and making new friends, yeah.
Right?
Stephanie, anything you want to say about your experience with JemCon, that now you're kind of a fan favorite and back a few times in a few years,
yeah,
so
thank you.
what are you thinking about this year or from previous times?
Since my first JemCon, I've done several other conventions, and they're all wonderful in their own way. But I discovered there's nothing quite like JemCon. And you guys know it because you're here. And even if you've never been here before, you probably feel it. It's a feeling of family. It's a feeling of, excitement to see each other. I mean, generally speaking, the fan conventions that I go to, there's, a sale room and everybody's in there, and then there's a speaker, and, a few people come in and listen to that. But this is like, everybody comes in, they want to hear all the stuff, they want to hear all the information, and they want to share their thoughts and their questions. And I've made I've made friends at the first JemCon that I went to that are now like besties, and I just appreciate you all so much, and appreciate the support and love that you give. I mean, I've never gotten so many hugs as I did coming, even though it's been 5 years since I came to my first one. I feel like I know so many of you, and I appreciate you all. So just thank you for the warm welcome. It's just awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting us. We probably have time for one more question, and these ladies will be around for autographs in the autograph session. We're going to do a quick thing in between. But we want your autograph. We want your autograph. So any one last question, or we can close and go to the next thing, which is exciting news about next year's JemCon. Anybody? Okay. Raven.
As we are all hopeful that Jim will receive a proper revision, if that were to happen, would you embrace the same role you had in the past Jim experience, or would you want to do something different in the reboot?
You're assuming they're on board, right? You're
Yes.
okay. Assuming you're on board for a Gem reboot,
You're on board
would you
for
want
a
to
Gem
would you want to
reboot.
do
Same thing.
would you want to do the same role, voice actor, market research? No, definitely not. Toy designer. So, or would you want to take on some new aspect of it? So, Stephanie.
I'm perfectly happy to continue to design gems.
Okay. Yeah. I know your answer.
I'd want to be up higher in the strategic decision making.
Sandy, you want to do both sides, right? The singing and the acting, right?
No, I would love to be your Gem, Jerica, again. That would be amazing. It would be even more amazing to have Christy Marks on board and be able to have her bring to life the episode that she's so happy and then if they wanted to recast Jem, it would be fun to be Synergy.
Oh yeah, you'd be a great Synergy. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, yeah, but voice acting, Christy Marks is in charge. Pick up the story where it left off, right? Okay, awesome. So I think with that, we should give our guest panel a great round of applause. Are we doing this thing that we talked about, Rachel? Am I or no?
No, I knew them both.
Okay, talk about Hassenfeld brothers. Hasbro.
Hasbro. I knew him to be. Well, you want to know the difference, in my opinion, between Stephen and Alan?
Yes. Yeah.
Stephen was smart and intuitive, and Alan was sort of the playboy who I don't think wanted the role he ultimately got when Stephen died. So Stephen is who I was more in touch with. I didn't see Alan very much. Stephen had lunch in that room. I mean, I was really fortunate. I was super young. We were having lunch in they had their private chef, but all of us were invited to eat there. And so we were having lunch with Stephen and Alan on a regular basis. Stephen was a pusher. It's like, did you ask enough? Did you do enough? Try again, try something more. You're doing 5 cities, do 10 cities. I'll fund it, I'll fund 10 cities. So that's what I know of Stephen. Alan was around less in my world.
I knew Alan a little better than Stephen, mostly because I knew Stephen from, executive meetings where he was, he was very smart and he knew his business. He really took it seriously, his role. But Alan came in and kind of reluctantly, I think, as Gisela mentioned, he was kind of a free-spirited playboy. He wasn't particularly interested in becoming CEO of his family company. But when he came in, I remember the day that he came into our department and we all gathered in the theater, the presentation theater, and he, kind of introduced what his vision was going to be for the company. And then he asked if we minded if he interviewed us personally. And he came, I don't know if everyone, but he came to almost everyone's offices and sat down with us personally to ask us for our opinions, our feedback. And I, remember my conversation with him and being so impressed that this young man who, had a different vision for Hasbro than his brother had, was so willing to listen to us, low-level design people. And I really felt like he was totally approachable after that. I felt like if I saw him in the hall that I could just chat with him a little bit. I'm not saying I knew him really well, but I was very impressed with Alan and liked his kind of a little bit more freewheeling approach to the business.
Stephanie, I just remembered this minute that we used to call that theater the Terror Room. At least we did it.
What did you call it? What was
The Terror Room.
The Terror Room.
Terror Room.
Yes.
It's like up like this, you present it down below, and
It was like a small amphitheater.
But terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah, because that's where all the good
That's
and
where
bad
the big-
stuff happens.
yeah.
Good and
either
bad
your
stuff
stuff
happens.
happened or didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the top
idea went forward or
executives
didn't.
would be in there and they were glowering down at you.
Sam, tell us about what's going on, what's coming up, what do you want to promote? We saw a beautiful remix video last night at the dance party, right?
Yes, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about, let us know what's going on.
How's your book coming?
My book, yes, because we did talk about my book the last time I was here. Well, a lot has happened in between, and I just kind of felt a need to take a little step back. It's difficult to compartmentalize your entire journey in a book,
While it's happening, while it's still happening, right?
While it's still happening, and while there's been a lot of traumatic stuff that's happened in the last 3 years, really. So I think I just need to let my little heart settle a little bit, get my sea legs again, and but it's definitely something that I want to do.
Are you writing a book as Jem?
Not as Jem, but it's the name of it is I Remember How It All Began, and It's
Which is
about
the first
my
line of the
journey.
cartoon, the
Yeah,
first line of the
first
cartoon.
line of the cartoon.
Yeah.
And it's about my journey as Sam, but also how I've had to wear it. I so relate to my characters. You know, I'm Jerica Benton running my indie music and career, wearing all those hats. I made the music video myself last night. I learned to be like an editor and just put it together myself. You know, I'm like, I'm not gonna hire a big production team to do it. So yeah, and then and getting to just kind of walk out on stage and be Jen. And you know, there's all of that. It's like I'm living vicariously through Jen, and I always have. You know, she's a lot to live up to. She really is, but it's a great goal. So yeah.
So that's
It's a coming. I'm thinking more like 20, probably closer to the 40th. I believe it's the 40th anniversary.
cozy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And other things you want to give us your Instagram handle or things that we should. I'm sure everyone here is
Yeah.
following you already, but if
Yeah,
maybe you
well,
want to just tell us. Or
For the Newark folks, SamanthaNewark.com. That's got all the portals to my social media, but you can just Google Gem, and I'm sure my face will pop up. And I'm pretty easy to find. So
Cool.
yes, if you follow me, I'll follow you back.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's
do.
true,
Why
yeah.
wouldn't I do that?
Yeah. Had some likes and hearts. But any questions? How are we doing with this next situation? By the way, Ankur. Ankur's following SamanthaNewark.com right now, I think. Oh, she's back. Okay. Rachel, we're ready for the next little quick announcement before we do autographs.
Just the
Just,
first part.
yeah, just the first little part before we lose. I think we discussed this offline.
I'm going to say that, Rachel, you've done such a tremendous job.
The top of the hat says, shows over Synergy JemCon Chair 2023. So she's graduating from this chair. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Rachel. Anything you want to say by way of graduation? Your valedictory speech?
My little tassel wouldn't stay on my cap, so I have it on my name badge.
Here, let's give her this mic. That's better.
It's off, you might need to turn it on.
Oh,
You're good.
that better? Yeah, ooh, there's a lot more people in here than I thought. So most people, I guess, who was here in 2018? We have a lot of people, and then we have a lot of new people. Awesome. So not to take up too much time, but so just really quick, I hosted JemCon in 2018 in Cleveland, and then some people here know the day after I went back to work, got laid off from my job, and was laid off for about a year trying to find something, and decided I had to search outside of Cleveland, and ended up getting a job out here in Rhode Island on the CBS account. So there'd always been sprinklings of, oh, we should really have a JemCon in Rhode Island, and was hoping to find someone to host JemCon in Rhode Island, but I just kind of initially wasn't planning on hosting again, but when I did end up moving out to Rhode Island, my first thought was, ooh, Hasbro. So it's been 5 years, I guess, in the making since Cleveland, and just a lot's happened obviously with COVID in the last few years and whatnot, but it was something that I wanted us to have just as JemCon, the community and the fandom. It was something I felt like we deserved and needed. We had, LA was wonderful with all the voice actors, and I felt like we needed that for the toy side. So it's been definitely a labor of love. I'm very excited to be not graduating from JemCon, just graduating from chairing JemCon. So happy to still be involved and help out with stuff. I'm my personal highlight, besides having so many new awesome guests this year, as well as returning favorites, is obviously the Hasbro tour. That was just, did not think that would happen, and they told us no twice, and I just didn't want to take no for an answer. So I'm glad it's been honestly a pleasure. And then just the last thing, this is more so for everyone here. We had 75 of the new first-time attendee name badges, and we sold out of them. So we have a lot of new people.
Okay.
Do we, and we'll do a little snippet for...
Yeah, we'll do a snippet. So, breaking news. I need you up here for this. So our freshman class of JemCon chair is now standing in front of you. He wants to say a few words. He has to leave early today.
Hello, Damon, and I'm going to be your next JemCon chair. Huge shoes to fill, but as a lifelong fan, and I hope to really do it justice, and I think that we'll have a really amazing time. And if those of you who don't know, thank you. So JemCon 2024 will be in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. In October, when it's not 100 But just a quick snippet. Those of you who have not visited our beautiful city, it is the 5th largest city in the country, so it's not Wile E. Coyote and desert, but we're surrounded by a living desert. It is beautiful. The Phoenix metro area is almost 5 million people, so it's a city, I promise. There's things to do, and we're working on a wonderful location where everything will be available to you in a one-stop shop where you don't have to leave property. But again, the weather is going to be absolutely stunning. We don't have an autumn, we have a second spring, which is really kind of a way to put it. So it's beautiful. It might reach the 90s tops, but bring your shorts and get in the pool in October. How does that sound?
Can you do it or not?
Can we do the backup track?
I don't know if we can pull that together.
Next
yeah.
time.
Next, okay, you'll
Yes,
do it.
I will, I promise. But
Okay.
really looking forward to it, and thank you so much. I got something.